This program is brought to you by realestate.com.au, Australia's #1 address in property. With more properties for sale than anywhere else, we make it easier.
Welcome back. Let's take a look at the auctions around the country. Starting in Sydney, there'll be 627 auctions this weekend with another 203 auctions around the state. Melbourne tops the list again. There'll be 861 auctions with another 71 auctions around Victoria. In Brisbane, there'll be 172 auctions with an additional 123 auctions around Queensland. In Adelaide, there'll be 208 auctions. And lastly, in Canberra, there'll be 80 auctions. Moving on to the most viewed properties that are going to auction, topping the list is 14 Blandford Street, West Croydon in South Australia. This 1920s home has been completely renovated with contemporary finishes whilst keeping its original character appeal. Second on the list is 12 Ramsey Road, Five Dock in New South Wales. It's the first time in 50 years that this home is up for sale and comes with a sizable block of land, about 700 square metres. Price guide is $2.2 million, and given its location, that auction will be one to watch. 36 Wandari Street, Rye in Victoria comes in third. It's priced at between $630,000 and $690,000. Next on the list is 28 Gertrude Street, Mulgrave in Victoria. That one has a price guide of $1.35 million to $1.45 million. Lastly, 15 Port Lincoln Boulevard, Pasadena in South Australia rounds out our list. This week's top listing is 12 Cornelius Place, Regentville, and this is one for car enthusiasts. Located on a quiet cul-de-sac in Western Sydney, just a few kilometres south of Penrith, this property sits on a 625 square metre block. The home features 3 generous bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and an open-plan kitchen and dining room. Now, this is the part that will get rev heads interested. There's off-street parking for up to 14 cars. But the real draw card is the professionally constructed car workshop that comes with a hoist, mezzanine storage, plumbing, and plenty of room for storing or modifying cars. It also has a Mini Cooper race car in the front yard as a sculpture. Price guide is $1.2 million, or in car terms, that's roughly the same cost as a 2020 Rolls-Royce Phantom. Well, let's bring in our guest from REA Group, Angus Moore. Angus, thanks for your time today. It seems like there's fewer auctions happening at the moment. Is the market starting to wind down a bit as we head in towards winter?
Thanks, Ed. Great to be here. Yeah, look, we've certainly had a bit of a quieter month through April, which, makes sense. We've had a lot of public holidays. People have been on leave. We'd expect that to be quieter. And it's also not a big surprise after we came off a really very busy first quarter. And if we look more broadly, we are seeing selling conditions temper a little bit from what we were seeing earlier in the year. The threat of interest rate rises, which we can probably get into in a minute, is certainly starting to cool some buyer demand. And we're seeing that in some of the measures of buyer demand. And at the same time, the record levels of properties we've seen coming to market in the first quarter has helped give buyers just a little bit more choice and take some of the competition out of the market.
Yeah, interest rates obviously lifted by the Reserve Bank this week. They're going to continue rising for the next 12 months or so. Do you believe RBA Governor Phil Lowe's prediction that the cash rate could get to 2.5%?
Yeah, look, I certainly don't envy the Reserve Bank. They have a pretty difficult task over the next couple years in managing inflation. They had their forecast out today showing pretty sharp increase in trim mean inflation. And I think that's really been driven by the surprise we got last week in the inflation data. We were expecting inflation to go higher this last quarter, driven by things like oil prices, international supply chains. But I think what came as a surprise was that non-tradable prices, domestic cost pressures, had really started to pick up. And that's why the RBA moved, and that's why they're now forecasting a much stronger pickup in inflation. In terms of how quickly the RBA moves from here, the markets are pricing in quite an aggressive increase in interest rates. Major bank forecasts are a little less aggressive. I think for me, I'm probably more towards the major bank side than the market side. I think, given we've had low interest rates for such a long time now, I think the RBA is going to want to be a little cautious as they raise interest rates. But inflation is picking up and, they may have to move pretty quickly to get it under control.
REA Group released its home price index this week. How did property prices perform in the month of April?
Yeah, that's right. We had the PropTrack Home Price Index out on Sunday this week. What we saw was that prices nationally grew 0.1%. And that's the slowest rate of growth we've seen really since the pandemic began. And we actually saw prices in Sydney and in Hobart come back just a little bit in the month. So I think it's fair to say we've seen the momentum come out of prices. Now, that's not surprising. You know, prices are up 35% since the pandemic began. We were never going to maintain that sort of pace of growth. And with the threat
Angus,
of interest rates rising...
I'm sorry, we've run out of time today,
surprising.
Angus. But thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me, Ed.